Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. Jim and Steve here on February 18th, 2023.
Yes, welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, up and down weather in New Jersey. It was 60 for 3 days, and then last night it was like in the teens.
68.
I didn't see 68.
Oh, I saw 68.
All right. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we always open our show with the monologue. And Steve, you have it this week. But of course, the monologue is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York. Steve, take it away.
Well, being the Super Bowl was last Sunday, I was sent an article. Well, it was on ESPN, actually. And it was a very extensive article about Joe Montana. And Joe Montana being, you know, how old he is now and so on and so forth.
It's like 70.
Well, the point about Joe Montana is he's Joe Montana. He's still Joe Cool. Okay. And I thought about this throughout the week. Very extensive article. So, folks, you can find this on ESPN. Okay. Any Joe Montana fans, Tony, right? So on and so forth. But I forgot, to me, Joe Montana, and everybody knows I'm a Roger Staubach is my idol. Okay. But I'm very objective. But to me, Joe Montana reminded me, or this article reminded me, I think he's the greatest of all time. Okay, we all are anointing Tom Brady as the greatest of all time. He's got 7 Super Bowls. Okay, but the thing about Tom Brady was blessed with great coaching, great defenses, great personnel. And I'm not knocking Tom Brady. I'm not saying Tom Brady is not worthy of that discussion and holding that title.
I know you're not.
Right? But this article just reminded me, because over time, I'm 58 years old now, and we were privileged enough to watch Montana. I remember Joe Montana at Notre Dame. I remember him beating Texas in 1977. Right?
Unbelievable.
That type of thing.
The Chicken Soup Bowl.
Right. But the point about Joe Montana is the more and more I read about it, reminded myself of what he accomplished. His Super Bowls were impeccable. They were absolutely impeccable.
Embedded in our memory.
Right? So from interceptions and touchdowns and so on and so forth, it just reminded me that Joe Montana. So after 3-4 days of debating inside my head, right? I'm coming back out and saying, to me, Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback of all time. I really truly believe that, and that's what I wanted to open the show with, to remind the audience members. I want to mainly remind myself. To me, Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback. 4 Super Bowls, never lost one.
Yep.
Was impeccable.
Yep.
And so on and so forth.
And you just brought it up, Steve. It actually started at Notre Dame when we saw that, right? It was a cold, frigid day in Texas, of all places, right? And the guy was dying of hypothermia and stuff, and he literally had chicken soup at halftime. And he came back in and listen, I will not even try to argue with you about Joe Montana. And just to put it into perspective, our father, who always said Johnny Unitas was the greatest quarterback of all time,
which
right?
we respected immensely.
1,000%.
To this day,
exactly.
We would never, he's been gone a while now.
And he was an old school guy. So, when Joe Montana came along, even he conceded. He goes, this guy is a winner. And he's something special, and it was amazing. And you and I watched every second of every Super Bowl Joe Montana played together, right? We watched it together. And that's that formulated why we're Sports with Mono and Mono today, those memories of amazing.
And Joe Montana took a licking and kept on ticking.
The Jim Bird hit, obviously.
I was there. I was at the game, sitting in my father's season tickets. And that play was on our end of the field. We sat at the 21-yard line behind the giant bench.
Yeah, 15, 16-yard line.
21-yard line.
Was it?
Yes, it was. And I watched Jim Bird live, and it was freezing freaking cold that day. annihilated Montana in that game. The point about Joe Cool was he kept coming up. He came
Picked
back.
itself up off the canvas
Right.
and came
So
back.
the article's extensive. Okay, it talks about Steve Young coming in, and Steve Young is quoted extensively in this article. And to me, Steve Young is one of the most stand-up, good guys.
Tough as hell. He went through a lot of. He got hit hard.
He was,
Right?
but Joe Cool, man, he just reminded me of the fact that, listen, to me, Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback.
Hey,
And I'm not knocking Tom Brady. You have to understand.
great monologue, and I have no reason to dispute you. It was awesome, and the guy did pick himself up and come back.
Time and time again.
Yep. And we can go on for weeks and about the greatest of all
It's a
time,
debate.
right? But I have no, and this is coming from a Roger Staubach fan who I actually idolized, right? I wasn't a Cowboys fan like you were, but I recognized how unbelievable Roger Staubach was to be the quarterback of your team growing up. It's just,
And the downside of Roger was the fact that it's not a downside, right? Navy guy, right? So he lost four years.
yeah, didn't come into the league until he was like, what, 27?
Right. And then it had, Tom Landry, had Craig Morton, and another couple of years went by before Roger. So Roger had a great 10-year career, but, with Roger Staubach, my all-time favorite quarterback. But Roger Staubach is a top 10 all-time quarterback. Let's make no mistake. Top 10.
1,000%. Okay. But here's the Super Bowl record. Joe Montana never lost the Super Bowl. Roger Staubach lost what? 2 Super Bowls, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he lost.
Not on his shoulders,
No.
but I'm just saying.
To the Steelers twice.
Yep. Listen, Tom Brady, he's won 7 Super Bowls, but he's also lost what? 4 Super Bowls, 3 or 4 Super Bowls.
But again, Tom Brady had a supporting cast, bar none.
Bill Walsh was a pretty good coach for Joe Montana.
And again, we could go 5 hours on
We could.
this topic. I just wanted folks look it up. Okay, it's on ESPN.
I'm gonna watch it.
Okay, it's a great article.
Good.
And, it's about Joe.
Good monologue, Steve. Good monologue. So let's wrap up this football season, right? We watched the game together. The Chiefs and the Eagles, and I tell you, from a lot of people I spoke to, they were all on board with the Eagles. And you and I, we were steadfast, right? My preseason pick was the Chiefs. I had the Packers also in the Super Bowl for full disclosure, but the Chiefs, I had them going all the way, and they did. And you got 2 words to describe the Super Bowl: Patrick Mahomes, right?
That was our analysis.
Exactly. And I think, somehow, Rob, we misconstrued our statements that one of us picked the Eagles, which we didn't, by the way.
I didn't pick the Eagles.
Right.
I didn't pick the Eagles.
But it was a really good Super Bowl, right? It was exciting. Jalen Hurts didn't really disappoint. He didn't lose the game for them.
Well, we had a big fumble in the first half. That turned
That
out
was
to
big.
be instrumental.
It was big.
Listen, the Eagles, it was kind of a tale of 2 halves, if you will. The Eagles really dominated the first half. Make no mistake about it. They were up 10 at halftime. And
then Andy Reid went to work and figured out how do we beat this?
Okay. So, what I noticed was Kansas City with these short motions and things like that. From a quarterback perspective, I kind of know things like that. But the Eagles couldn't adjust to that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously, this holding call at the end, it's been a big controversy. Folks, he was held. You know why he was held? Number one, Patrick Mahomes does not throw a football to an area or a spot unless he expects his wide receiver to be there. So the fact, number one, that his wide receiver wasn't there, that led me to believe there was some impediment along the way. Okay. Number 2, he did hold him. Okay. Was it ticky-tack? It might have been, yes. However, an angle just came out, I would say late Thursday.
Even the guy that held him said, I grabbed him.
I was going to get to that as the third and final. But there is an angle for those doubters that came out yesterday. I think it was yesterday, where Bradbury is you literally see his hand with a full mounted jersey right above his buttocks. Okay.
Was it the game changer? Did it decide the game?
This, folks, is my clincher. don't give up 38 points. You want to win the Super Bowl, then don't give up 38 points.
Yep.
Okay. Kansas City gave up 35. Tough noogies. Kansas City, the Super Bowl.
But how
champ.
about these little bit players for Kansas City, right? The kid Pacheco from Rutgers,
Absolutely.
and I mean, these guys they realized they were part of a franchise with one of the premium. Steve, 5 years, 10 years from now, we could be talking about Patrick Mahomes in the same vein you just talked about Joe
Very well
Montana,
may.
right? So it was a great football game. You know, the halftime show aside.
I don't even know what you're referring to, but okay.
Okay. But listen, the Kansas City Chiefs win their second Super Bowl, and so there is some movement going on, right? Eric Bieniemy. So we're going to find out: is he really the architect behind Patrick Mahomes' success? Because he's going to the Washington Commanders.
And listen, back to the Kansas City Chiefs. To be fair and objective here, we've been crushing Kadarius Toney, the New York Giants, number one draft pick,
Rightfully so.
rightfully so. However, Kansas City trades for him. The kid produced in the Super Bowl.
He did.
He did. You have to acknowledge it. I don't like this kid as a personality, so to speak.
Understood.
Okay, but
We're talking between the lines.
we're talking between the lines, and the kid made plays and was instrumental in Kansas City winning. And Travis Kelce, the battle of the Kelce brothers. Travis Kelce is a first ballot Hall of Fame tight end.
100%. That's no doubt.
So Kansas City is not done. They are not done. And again, I'm going to go back to my prediction. I said, whatever. I expect 3 Super Bowls out of Kansas City, probably in the next 1 or 2 years. Whether they can repeat, I wouldn't put anything past Patrick Mahomes. Okay, but Kansas City's not done.
No.
They're still loaded for bear.
No, and this kid Mahomes just that was part of our thinking when we're talking about this. If we went into that Super Bowl and said we're buying in that the Eagles are loaded on the offense and defense, and Kansas City's on, I don't want to say in transition. They were, they only lost 2 games the whole season. But if we bet against Patrick Mahomes, and now everyone's going to say, it's like betting against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. You just don't do it.
Michael Garvey, Bengals, Bills.
I know.
They're there, of course.
But here's a funny thing.
They're loaded for bear too.
Right, but one of our loyal listeners, diehard, Michael Burns, right, Niagara guy, Mike Garvey's roommate, actually in college.
Oh, Mike Garvey's roommate. Ooh,
that's a little 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? But anyway, so they're all talking, oh, the Bills need work. We were talking about them as a Super Bowl favorite, right? To actually make it over Patrick Mahomes in the AFC. And now I'm going, wait a minute, don't panic here. You got Patrick Mahomes in the AFC. The AFC is loaded. And the Bills will be just as good next year. But I did see something they were talking about. They need a running game. I think this guy, Devin Singletary, is pretty good. And they got this kid, James Cook, who fumbled on his first carry coming out of Georgia, winning the national championship. The Bills will be fine, but they're going to have to get through Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
And the Cincinnati Bengals.
And the Bengals.
There's no question. These are the 3 best teams in the AFC.
And biggest Joe Burrow fan on the planet.
And back to the Eagles. The Eagles are loaded for bear too.
Exactly.
Don't be surprised the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl next year.
Yep.
The NFC is not the AFC. It's just not.
It's not.
And
it's wide open.
Don't be surprised the Eagles make a run here because they got talent. Man.
They do. So Steve, let's talk about a couple other things going on in the NFL, right? Where is he? I thought he got out.
I think he's
anyway. And those are the 2 names, right? Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers. Are these still quote unquote franchise quarterbacks? Aaron Rodgers would be a rent-a-jet, right, for 2 years. I don't know if whatever happens when he comes out of his dark closet. And Derek Carr visiting the Jets today. I've never been a Derek Carr fan.
I am.
And I look at his record and I go, what have you done?
You know what he's done?
How many playoff games?
You know what Derek Carr is inherited?
He shows up every week. He plays. I thought that was going to be a PH.
I love
dot,
it, Jack.
dot, dot.
That's a good one.
Hey, Jeremy, thank you for chiming in.
Derek Carr, when he's been a member of the Los Angeles Rangers, Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas.
9
Raiders,
years
whatever.
now, by
Okay.
the way.
Do you understand that the Raiders defense in his tenure there, 32nd, 31st, 30th, 32nd, 31st, 30th, 32nd, 31st, 30th.
Okay.
You want to tell me any quarterback is going to be successful when you have a defense that is a sieve like the Raiders defense has been. So Derek Carr's got to what? Drop back 50 times, this, that, and the other thing. And you're the quarterback. So
That's what a quarterback's
So when
supposed
you play
to do.
behind, you're going to blame Derek Carr. To me, Derek Carr is a professional quarterback. And if he's on a decent team, I would take a flyer on Derek Carr. He's 31 years old.
He is 31. But
I
by the way,
agree with Garvey. I agree that Derek Carr could be a perfect Jet. I still think they're all in on Rodgers. If Rodgers wants to be a Jet, it's going to happen.
That's what I
But
think.
the Jets have to do their due diligence, of which they are. And they're giving them credit that if Rodgers wants to be a Raider, which could be a possibility, then you fall back on Derek Carr as your next best.
Okay, so
And I agree with.
So he's getting wined and dined. They're probably taking him to Peter Luger's, tonight for dinner to go
Not
to.
Scott Mitchell, Jeremy. No.
Oh no, even I would concede, Jeremy, that Derek Carr is much better than Scott Mitchell. That was a Dan. Who was the guy from Green Bay? Wojciechowski or something.
Don Majowski.
Majowski, whatever. Anyway, so think about that. I just don't think he's a fit. I don't think he's proven enough to be a winner. And I don't think even Derek Carr coming to the Jets makes the Jets a contender.
The Jets have Garrett Wilson. The Jets have the super young Elijah Moore. They got good tight ends.
They have talent, but are they good enough to get past the elite teams in the AFC?
They need a quarterback, the New York Jets.
Of course. They're going to get one of those two guys.
Okay.
And I don't see Derek Carr.
The Jets defense had a great year. They're young. There's no reason the Jets cannot compete. They need a professional quarterback. That's the one gaping black hole.
And Rodgers is the answer.
And Derek Carr's not?
I don't think he is. No, I don't. I don't have any even.
Well, the first step is for the Jets to get to the playoffs. I'm not anointing them.
Oh, that's
that
right.
They can beat.
They haven't been there in 100 years.
But I'm not anointing if they get a Derek Carr that they can beat Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City, like we talked about in the AFC.
I'm not.
They have to make a step to make the playoffs.
It's one of those two guys.
So win more games than lose.
Or they could go the Jets route and sign Andy Dalton or Teddy Bridgewater or Geno Smith.
But I think Derek Carr is not one of those guys. I think Derek Carr is much better.
I think it's Rodgers and Carr. Agreed.
Of course.
But I'm not disputing that. But
what do you got, Rob?
The total Jet thing to do will be to sign Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, cut it out. I mean, he's not even in the top.
He's on the list.
He's not even on the top.
He's on the list, though.
No, he's on the list. So is Baker Mayfield. So is these other humps.
Any Jet.
By the way,
any Jet.
I'm siding with
Steve
Steve
God, if they sign Ryan Tannehill, we'll commit suicide. Well, Zach is going to.
I'm siding with Steve here.
Zach is waiting.
I don't know if he's ever going to get a shot.
I'm siding with Steve here.
They're going to bring him back.
I think Derek Carr is the quarterback.
All right. Well, we'll see. Anyway, so
it's up to Rodgers. If Rodgers wants to be a Jet,
he's going to be a Jet.
Listen. It's either the Jets or the Raiders for Rodgers, and I would not be surprised if he becomes a Raider.
And the Giants are going to sign Daniel Jones, right?
Yeah, it's a done deal.
Okay, so
we've talked about it. Daniel Jones has earned the position.
Absolutely,
he's the Giants quarterback.
Yeah. No. One other thing I wanted to bring up in the NFL, Steve, because you and I, we follow this games closely, right? Todd Monken, Georgia offensive coordinator for the past 2 national championship teams, leaving Georgia and Kirby Smart and going to the Baltimore Ravens.
You know who his brother is?
No.
Jeff Monken, head coach of Army.
Oh, I did not know that. It's my Johnny Carson.
That is correct.
Wow. But let's see how this pans out for Kirby Smart and stuff and find out, was Todd Monken behind Stetson Bennett's success and winning this? Yes.
Stetson Bennett's success is the fact that he was 25 years old playing quarterback in college.
Anyway, but I thought that was a big move, right?
Yeah, it's a worthy move.
That is a
But
move.
I think we might have touched on last week. Tommy Reese going to Alabama, leaving Notre Dame to become the offensive coordinator there. Notre Dame is still scrambling to find that position.
And what happens? Even these guys leave and come and go, right? Nick Saban and Kirby Smart will still be in the top 3 teams in the country year after year.
Talent. They have the best talent in the country.
Yep.
Period.
You got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so football, next up is the draft, and we'll be talking about that as we come, not on a regular basis because there's so many things that have to happen. But
we'll do our draft show.
Yeah. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid. Again, I mean, Andy Reid is such a great coach. No, really. Outside the State Farm commercials with the
he's just getting a paycheck
with the mustaches, I get it.
Horrible.
I don't begrudge him.
And we just got a comment from Elizabeth Hubbard.
Elizabeth Hubbard is Jeremy's mother, the longtime actress. And Elizabeth Hubbard, I hope you are feeling well, young lady. She is not feeling well right now, but Elizabeth Hubbard.
Our mother worshipped Elizabeth.
Worshipped her.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth Hubbard was on soap opera The Doctors in the 70s, and she was with Cinda Walsh on As the World Turns for over 30 plus years. And Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Excellent.
And we do need a set, and we are going to be working on that, and that will be my promise to you.
Well, she could be our showbiz connection, and set us up in the old studio that used to film The Doctors. That would be great.
But Elizabeth,
thank you.
Right, we wish you a speedy recovery.
We certainly do.
Thank you.
So, Steve, let's move on to baseball. And again, I think we've touched on it in the baseball rules that are going on. I mean,
Mrs. Hubbard, there's plenty of clippings of me growing up that you can worship and read.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you for the compliment.
Yeah. But Steve, so now the bases are big as pizza boxes. How's that going to benefit the game of baseball?
I'm glad we finally got to this. So I think it was earlier in the week, but I'm reading the Red Sox manager, Alex Cora, because they just got to spring training. And then I hadn't seen it visually yet, but I read a quote from Alex Cora as like, the bases look like pizza boxes.
I came up with that, actually.
Okay, if you came up with it, then
he stole it from me.
Okay. So my immediate thought is playing men's softball. It's diminishing this, so it's so ridiculous.
It's changing a game that's had the same size bases for 100
years. It's ridiculous.
And what is it supposed to do?
It's supposed to cut down on injuries.
Why?
Well, the first baseman might not get his footstep every 9,000 pitches.
Okay.
Or
isn't that part of the game?
I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to increase base stealing, this, that, and the other thing. It's a joke, folks. It really
right, but
is.
Don't you see now with a bigger base, that means more guys will be called safe, right? And which could prolong the game. And I think the whole thing is trying to speed up the game.
There's no shift this year.
Exactly. Let's go through these one at a time.
Clock, batting clock.
This is going to cause chaos beyond belief. You can see Verlander or Scherzer going, well, what are we doing here?
Good clip.
Right? So I don't see that being anything but chaotic.
Why don't they make home plate the size of a pizza box? How about that question, Rob Manfred?
Exactly.
Oh, because what? Balls and strikes? Really?
And now the ghost runner. It's going to be a permanent fixture in Major League Baseball.
And listen.
And the reason I bring that up is because when we talked about a 9-inning game that's going into extra innings, and Mariano Rivera came in, how hard it was to get a runner, not only on first base, but much less second base when he was pitching. And now you're actually putting a guy, all it takes is a sacrifice bunt and a fly ball, and now you got a one run loss. That takes the relief pitcher's effectiveness out of the game. That's my point.
I mean, as a Major League Baseball player, who wants to play 18 innings, 20 innings, right? The extra inning game, right? But then again, folks, the kind of money these guys are making, what are we asking here? Like you're on an Alabama, chain gang, working in the hot sun, you Paul Newman and,
Cool hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke. No, right? That's baseball, folks.
It is.
And
162 games just to find out who's going to play for the World
and I
Series.
find it to be just utterly silly.
It's driving me crazy, by the way.
Utterly silly.
Yep.
It really is.
So, Steve, let's talk about a couple other things in Major League Baseball because we're side by side on this rule change stuff. It's perplexing to me. So everybody shows up in spring training early, right? So now they're all baptizing again the Mets as the clear-cut favorites to make the World Series in the National League. Okay. What are your thoughts?
They're a favorite to make the World Series. Why wouldn't it be?
They won 101 games last year, but didn't go any further than the first round of the playoffs.
You play the game.
I know.
Oh, you play the game.
I know, and we've talked about
the Braves are the Braves. What if the Braves? Last I could tell, they're still the Braves. The Phillies made the World Series. Nobody saw that coming. And again, the playoffs have been expanded. So a team that gets hot, when they get hot, they get hot. Okay, it's that simple.
I'm just asking about whether or not
the
Mets
are a favorite to win.
Legitimate contender.
Why would they? They have Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer.
I know. They're 38 and 39. These guys could go down at any time.
Well, until they do, right? You're asking the question right now.
But I do look, go around the lineup and stuff. Alonso, you've been on his bandwagon the whole time, and I'll give you credit.
But Alonso's the type of guy that this pitch clock is going to affect. Alonso's a guy who takes a lot of time in between the bats. Okay?
They all do, actually.
Well, no. Again, baseball, folks, for those that have played it, what I thought about? I thought about Thurman Munson with this, in between pitches count. Thurman would step out, and what would Thurman do? He'd be like, one batting glove, the other batting glove,
mask, go out, talk to the pitcher, hand Guidry the ball, that kind of stuff.
My only point in bringing this up is guys are set in their ways. That's what you do when you're a baseball player. Okay, the superstitions and all this stuff. So, like anything, it's an adjustment. I get that. But there's players like in Alonso and guys that take their freaking sweet time.
That's why
that's why the rule's in effect, because there's too many guys that are taking their sweet time.
Right, but the pitchers too used to take forever.
They do. And now, you can't throw over to first base. I think it's more than 3 consecutive times or two or something like that. Right? Or 3 for an at-bat, whatever the case may be. Listen, baseball's been around since the late 1800s.
It's changing. It's like making the football field 106 yards instead of 100, right?
I find it silly.
Me too. Anyway, a couple other quick baseball points. Frankie Montas out for the year.
Yeah, it's a tough loss.
Yeah, so that they were counting on Frankie to be one of the top 5.
We got fleeced by Oakland again. Sonny Gray, Frankie Montas. I get it,
really. Anyway, so people will hang Cashman for that, but they knew when they got him over here, he got rocked for his first 4 times, and then he was done for the year, and now he's out for this year too. And one other one, Jacob deGrom, already feeling a little twinge in his side, So, but he's going to get his $185 million regardless of whether
that's all it's about.
Whether he pitches or not.
Let's hope Jacob, gets 100 career victories.
That's a lot of money.
But listen, when Jacob deGrom was here, You and I watched this guy. This guy was special, man.
I couldn't wait to watch him pitch. It was that good.
But look, could stay on the field.
Exactly.
And I don't begrudge Texas for making this splash. They got the money. They want to pay that money. Go ahead.
Apparently, they got the money because they're paying
But
everybody.
caveat emptor, folks. Buyer beware, because he is just not going to.
Good Brady Bunch reference.
He's not going to give it. He's
Yep.
not going to give it. He's not going to win 20 because he'll never be out there.
But we were talking about the money that they're paying these guys, which is just crazy, right? But I saw this thing, Manny Machado, who signed this 10-year, $300 million contract.
Can opt out,
He can opt out,
and he's gone.
and he's going to because the market is saying, listen, if you can opt out, we'll pay you $40 million.
Why wouldn't he?
It's just crazy that how this happens in across sports. You can go wherever you want. We talked about Durant, right? Now Phoenix Sun, and with the money that they're making.
I'm all right with that. See, the New York Yankees, I need it.
Do we? Do we want Manny Machado and pinstripes?
I
No.
do.
I thought they made the right call not taking him the last
Oh,
time. he was
no, they made
available.
the right call by trading for Josh Donaldson.
I don't say that. No. I mean,
Well,
I
I'm
thought
stuck with Donaldson again.
I'm just not sure Machado is worth that $40 million price tag.
With the New York Yankees. What?
It could happen.
It's gonna happen.
It could happen.
It's gonna happen,
I'm not
folks.
saying it's not. Anyway, so Steve, let's move on real quick to college basketball. And we have talked about this for several weeks. Nobody seems to want to be number one in college basketball,
No.
right? Purdue was up there a long time. Houston is now number two. Alabama leapfrogs, unprecedented, being number one in college hoops. They get knocked off by Tennessee in a big game, which is a great rivalry, actually. It's just as good as football, Alabama, Tennessee, in the basketball court.
Yeah.
So and an interesting fact, it's the most times in a single season that the number one team has lost after they were baptized number one.
And it's still early. It's February,
It
so
is.
it's going to be a record.
But what's
Wow.
coming? What's coming?
More
Madness, right? Madness.
Ooh.
So anyway, it's
Good luck with your bracket this year, folks.
forget it.
Really, forget it.
I know. But college hoops is starting to heat up, right? Conference tournaments will be coming up soon, and we'll be getting the picks for what we just. When you talk about Joe Montana, I reflect on you and I watching every single national championship game, right? The whole tournament, but basically every national championship game were unbelievable, right? Danny Manning in Kansas in '88, and just
Bird Magic.
right. Was it Cleves in Michigan State? And it's unbelievable.
Isaiah Thomas in '82 against North Carolina.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, Georgetown, Villanova, Georgetown. I mean, it's just endless.
Right.
Endless great.
And through all of that, right? And we just brought up, we lost Billy Packer, who called most of those games.
Duke, Kentucky, '78. Jim Spanarkel, Jack Givens.
But I still think,
Joanne
Steve,
Steve.
between every game that you and I watched, that season with Indiana undefeated in 1976 was just,
I was saving
to
that.
me,
Right. Against Michigan
the
in the
pinnacle.
final, right? Indiana 32-0.
oh,
Michigan was no joke. Johnny Orr was the head coach at Michigan. Ricky Green was the star. Phil Hubbard was on Michigan.
yep.
And that was a good game. It was a good game of really until about 15. Early second half, Indiana started to pull away.
But Indiana had a couple of players named Kent Benson,
Quinn
Scott
Buckner.
May, Quinn Buckner, and
Tom Abernathy. I mean, they were loaded.
a little note, a lot of people wouldn't know it, but Rutgers made the Final Four that year.
That's right.
They did.
Eddie Jordan.
They had quite a season that year. Phil Sellers was
Phil
on that
Sellers,
team.
Eddie Jordan.
But I'm started. Everyone goes, what are we going to do now? There's no football on Sundays. I mean, obviously there's the XFL, which
Right, so there's no football on Sunday.
there's no football on Sundays. So I said, now we ramp up to hockey and college hoops, right?
Hockey.
Which we're going to talk about.
Rangers.
But here was an interesting fact, and I saw this thing this morning on this player from Detroit Mercy College who
Yeah.
just beat Oakland, right? I think
Okay.
his name is Antoine Davis, something like that. He's about to break Pete Maravich's all-time college basketball point total.
Rob, you got to look this up. What's his name? What's his name?
Its name is Antoine.
I don't believe it.
Just telling you.
Rob,
Please look it up for Detroit Mercy. He plays for.
tell me how many points he has. Because there's no chance he's anywhere near Mount.
No, if he plays 5 more games this season, he could break Pete Maravich's record. Wow, I'm getting called to the carpet. on
You
the
are
air,
getting
you know.
called to the carpet because when it comes to Pete Maravich, I take I'm very territorial.
Obviously, LSU was a different caliber of basketball than, let's say, Detroit Mercy.
And
but-
also, Pete didn't have a 3-point line either.
Absolutely noted. I'm just bringing it up.
I'm not shooting the messenger, Jim.
Okay. Thank you.
I get very territorial when it comes to the pistol.
Oh, that's what. Listen, rightfully so. Me too. I watched him score 66 points in a game against the Nets when he played it for the Utah Jazz. It was actually the New Orleans Jazz at the time, right? Yeah. So, anyway, Steve, while Rob's looking that up for us, the Rangers in the NHL, right? Second half of the season, and we told you,
How about last night?
unbelievable.
So the Rangers, I went to bed, and I was tired from the week.
Losing 4-1 at the
Losing
end of the first
4-1.
period.
I'm like, okay, listen, they're out there, playing well with
Draisaitl scored 2 goals. McDavid will get 2 goals and an assist or whatever.
And then I woke up and checked the score, and the Rangers bounced back 5-4. Lafreniere in the 6th shootout, something like that. Kreider, a couple goals. So, this Tarasenko trade. So, Gallant takes Panarin off Tarasenko, puts him, Sabanajad, Tarasenko, and then Kreider.
Yeah.
And these guys, for the last 4 games,
Crushing it.
beyond.
What do you got, Rob?
All I have is Antoine Davis is his name. And the latest graph they have is from January 21st. And he's about.
All right, well, all right, you validated the name. It was Antoine Davis.
Okay.
Antoine Davis. That's who it was.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll look it up. I wouldn't have made this statement if it
I
wasn't
don't
even.
care about his name. I want to know if he's breaking Pete Maravich's number.
He's going to finish second to Pete Maravich if he doesn't break the record. Put it that way.
According to January 23rd, he was less than 400 points behind.
400 points behind Maravich, which is what?
That
Over
was-
3,000 points.
Again, this is January 21st. He was
Yeah, which means now he's 150
He's probably a lot
behind
closer,
Pete
yeah.
Maravich.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
I still never heard of him, and Pete Maravich is still Pete.
But I saw the highlights of his game last night. They beat the Oakland. He was wearing one of those masks, so this guy was lighting him up. Everything he was throwing up was going in, and these were bombs,
All right.
by the way. Anyway, so let's get back real quick. I wanted to bring up, you're right. The Rangers played Edmonton last night, and we get to see Connor McDavid, who got his 100th point. And when we talk about hockey and 100 points, remember when we were growing up, 100 points was
The standard.
the standard. And then Wayne Gretzky got 180, 190, 212, and it was unheard of. But now, today, this guy, Connor McDavid, got his 100th point in 56 games. Kid's a player.
No question about it. Connor McDavid's the best player in the NHL.
Yes.
There's no, I'm not disputing that whatsoever. But Edmonton's got talent. So, you're watching them. Ryan Nugent Hopkins and McDavid and Draisaitl and guys like this.
It's great to see.
I mean, they got to start.
This was a legendary franchise with
Well, of
Messier
course,
and
but
Gretzky.
they got
yeah.
talent. They enough of Edmonton. They haven't done anything really. Since this
They've been
25
rebuilding. They've been
years.
rebuilding for 15
25.
years.
No,
Yeah.
25.
Okay.
So it's time. Yeah,
Anyway.
Connor McDavid start winning some playoff games.
But the point is, the Rangers really look
They look great.
great. I
And
mean,
we still got money to make another move.
I don't know that we need the move.
Yeah, we
I
do.
don't know.
We need another. We need some toughness. Trouba's our toughest guy, and he's a skilled guy. I need a guy on the third, fourth line. It's going to open up avenues for these guys to score.
Yeah, but we had Ryan Reeves, and maybe
Gallant
Gallant
he
didn't
didn't
think
do anything.
he would have done anything
He didn't
for
do
you.
anything. Right?
He wasn't going to score points, but that was the muscle you're talking about.
Right.
You know?
Listen.
Anyway,
We're fine the way we are right now, but if they got the money, they're going to make a trade too.
and 100%, you know, to win the Stanley Cup, it's going to go through Boston.
There's no question. That's why I'm saying I need a guy to knock Todd Marchand on his ass
No,
and really kick his ass. Okay?
it's tough to
And make a
catch.
statement when we do play Boston. Hopefully we do play Boston and go through Boston.
Yep.
Bring it on.
Right.
But I need a guy that's going to kick his ass. So I'm sick of that punk.
I know, but he's good.
He's damn good.
It's always the old saying, you hate the guy as a player, but you'd love to have him
Yes.
on your team.
Yes.
Right?
And I want a guy on my team that will kick his ass if he starts his nonsense.
Gotcha. Anyway, so NBA All-Star Game, celebrity game last night. Didn't see it, but
I missed it.
I don't know what the over and under on it was, but I saw DJ Metcalf had the slam dunk of the night.
Ah,
So,
good for DJ.
right? Enough we said about the Kevin Durant thing. Let's see how it all plans out, and let's move on. So we move on, Steve, to our random points of interest, which of course is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. Couple of shout outs real quick first. Somebody at work, you know, I was talking up the show and she says, great show last week. New loyal listener, Jocelyn.
Hi, Jocelyn.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. And first and foremost, yesterday was a birthday. My grandson, Logan, who obviously we've shown some clips and he's quite a promising athlete, turned 9 years old yesterday.
Oh, the big niner.
The big 9.
Wow.
And, biggest Patrick Mahomes fans on the planet. Got a video of him. I should have sent it to Rob this morning with his Patrick Mahomes doing the gritty kind of thing. It was funny. But happy birthday, my buddy.
Happy birthday.
I love you, Logs. You know,
Happy birthday, Bob.
he's like maturing into this.
Like your grandson.
It feels like
Feels
it,
like
you
he's
know,
like your grandson.
but he is. Anyway, so Steve, let's move on to our random points of interest. I wanted to bring this up because I saw this. So they're going to put a statue in front of the Los Angeles Kings where they play.
Dustin Fox.
No, Dustin Brown.
Dustin Brown. Sorry, Dustin Brown.
And I started to think, you know, I mean, when we think of the Kings, right, we think of obviously Marcel Dion and, you know, Dave Taylor and those.
And Luca Robitaille.
Luke Robitaille and Wayne Gretzky.
Sure.
And I just, you know, and we're hockey guys. That just goes to show how little we got the chance to see Dustin Brown play, who's literally legendary status for the LA Kings. And I go, I didn't really put him in. If you asked me the name, I would have said Dustin Fox. I would have said, yeah, sure.
I misspoke. Dustin Brown had stellar career. Stanley Cup champion, captain of the Los Angeles Kings.
Why hadn't I seen him play 100 games?
Top three or four scoring for the Kings. He's a LA King through and through. He's no different than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson.
My point is
Jerry West for the Lakers. He is the face of.
And I didn't realize it because we don't see him from the West Coast that often.
But that's about
that was my point.
Right. But he was instrumental when the Rangers lost to the Kings.
Yep.
And I had the privilege of I went to I went to 2 Stanley Cup games of that against the Kings at the Garden. And listen, Dustin Brown, man, this guy was the real deal.
No, I'm giving him 2 thumbs up.
We're giving him 2 thumbs up.
100%.
Congratulations. And his statue is absolutely well deserved outside.
Very good.
No question.
Because I brought up that guy Jake
Good call.
McPhee last week about most games pitched for the Tampa Bay Rays. I go, I don't remember seeing the pitch.
It was funny because I was in the store maybe 2 days after our podcast. And saw a guy with a Blue Jay cap on, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "I happen to do a sports podcast." I said,
"You know who Jake McPhee is?"
He goes, "No."
That's my point.
Thank you for validating.
That's my point. Yep. Couple other things. So, Steve, Kevin Sumlin, right? Well-renowned college football coach going over to Maryland. Past coach at what? A&M, Arizona.
Arizona. Kevin
Yeah.
Sumlin's been a head guy.
Yeah, he was. And
But Maryland,
Houston.
Maryland, this Loxby is the head coach there. They're coming on.
They had a couple of rough years with this scandal, right?
They had a kid die.
It was a mess.
So it doesn't get much more of a scandal than that.
Sure. Wanted to bring it up.
Right. The previous coach was a real piece of work, but Mike Loxby took over.
Yes,
probably like 3 or 4 years now.
3.
And Sumlin is a offensive guy.
Yep.
So that makes sense. But Maryland. Listen, Maryland's ahead of the curve of Rutgers, is the way I'll put this. Okay?
Maybe.
Because when they play each other, Maryland kicks the crap out of Rutgers. So Maryland, with getting a Kevin Sumlin on the staff, is making smaller and smaller increments.
Yep.
Okay? Above Rutgers.
Okay.
Good move.
Michael Jordan turning
Heard it.
60 years old this week.
Yes.
You know what? I thought he was going to be 62, 63.
I remember him always.
He's not a hell of a lot older than me.
No.
But happy birthday, and he makes $10 million donation to Make-A-Wish, which is always a good thing. He could donate $100 million every week and still live the life he lives.
Billionaire.
But he was unbelievable when we talked about the NCAA before, and one of the most classic shots of top 10 all time. Right?
He's up
there. Yep.
All time greatest.
So guess what? As the weather starts to warm up, golf season is starting to come, right? Less than 2 months away from the Masters at Augusta.
Now, Tiger's been in the news.
He has been in the news, which was my point. He's on the border of making the cut at Riviera for the Genesis Open,
which is a course that he normally plays
1,000 times.
But he's won 1,000 times.
But you still see that limp. He's not the 100%, Tiger Woods that he once was. But interesting nonetheless. We calling this the Tiger comeback, right? He's got to be 47 now? 47? He kind of looks 47 now.
46 maybe.
Yeah, I think he's a little north of that. But the funny thing was, he was playing with Justin Thomas, and he outdraws Justin Thomas. So they're walking down the thing. He hands them something, and nobody was supposed to know. It was supposed to be between them. It was a tampon. So that's you and I playing golf, breaking chops, and they came down on him, and he apologized today. But it was a funny thing between golfers and best friends.
Right. No need to apologize.
Yep. See, one other thing, and this is close to your heart, former Dallas Cowboy Greg Hardy last night. He's now into bare knuckle fighting.
He is.
He got knocked out last night by some guy that they must have picked him out of a bar and Thatcher McGee's or something. Knocks this guy out. And Greg Hardy's a big man.
Couldn't be happier.
I thought it was fun.
God.
It's a Cowboy thing. Same team that Roger Staubach played for.
Yeah, let's not be ridiculous.
And he was an animal then, and now he's an animal that got his ass kicked.
Well, congratulations.
Me too.
I want to beat the guy.
Me too. I don't want to get involved with the guy that knocked him out. Dude. Anyway, so those are some random points, and if you have messages or comments on our show, send us an email with some random points at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. Steve, we always close with this segment, which is, we call it a tribute, not a downtrodden thing, but notable passings.
Yeah, very notable this week.
And listen, first and foremost, we have to start with the biggest one of all was Raquel Welch, 82 years old. Just a legendary figure.
I'm going to get up now, folks, and I'm going to let you close the show, so I have to go back in the morning here.
I think we're both getting verklempt. We were in that teen era where, we were starting to recognize what beauty was.
Puberty, folks.
I didn't want to mention it on air, but anyway.
She still was my number one all time and will remain number one all time from a celebrity perspective.
And that's saying something.
That is saying something.
Yep.
Raquel Welch, 82 years
Yep.
old. Listen, not only a sex symbol. I mean, Raquel Welch was in a ton of movies.
Yeah.
Okay, she was a Golden Globe nominee a couple times, so on and so
And
forth.
what was
And
our
a successful businesswoman. She really was.
Oh, big time. Big
But
time.
yeah, I mean, she's just absolutely.
And she was
gorgeous.
even on a Seinfeld episode,
Of-
which
of
made fun.
course.
But what was she was notable, I think you and I, because we watched this probably 10 times. Kansas City Bomber.
Okay.
Remember?
Absolutely.
One of the most beautiful women in the world playing in the most violent sport or whatever. It
Roller
was
derby.
wrestling and nothing. It was Kansas
Roller
City
derby.
Bomber. Had to be what, 1975?
Still the greatest movie I've ever seen.
Most ridiculous movie, but it's one of those like a train wreck. You have to watch
So
it.
back in the day, he had the TV guide, right? And it would come and he would have that week's, right? So it would come on what? Like it's Friday or Saturday or something. And then you go through the TV guide and it'd be like, ugh, Kansas City Bombers at 11 o'clock on.
Which was basically a 2-hour Charlie's Angels episode.
okay.
right? Yeah.
But once we knew Kansas City Bomber was on, all right, I got to get home.
Yep. But we wanted to mention Raquel Welch because she was
No question.
class act.
R.I.P. Raquel.
And if you could watch some old Johnny Carson reruns, 10 o'clock at night, she's on all the time. It's great. It's the banter between those two. You could just see Johnny going, look what I'm sitting next to. Right?
So R.I.P. Raquel.
Yep. And another one today from the world of Hollywood, Steve. Stella Stevens passed away.
Mother of
84.
Andrew Stevens.
Yes, she was. Also known, she was in Girls, Girls, Girls with Elvis Presley, and of course, the Poseidon Adventure,
Of course.
which we watched 100 times.
Yeah, she was a blonde, like 60s, 70s,
Well,
80s.
she was a sex
actress.
symbol of the
No
60s.
question.
Yeah.
So, R.I.P. Stella Stevens. That's
Yeah.
a name we all, at least the Monahan brothers.
And everyone goes, oh, Poseidon Adventure or Girls, Girls, Girls. We go, Girls, Girls, Girls.
Girls, Girls.
That was pretty good. She was pretty much on the beach the whole time. you know.
Shelley Winters. So,
Oh, 100%. When she jumps in and then the dress goes up, God, it doesn't get any better. Steve, couple other notables in the world of sports. Tim McCarver passed away.
Yeah.
You know, you and I, we know all about Tim Carver. We watched him play. We grew up and he was a catcher. So as a catcher, nobody knows more about the game of baseball, I think, than a catcher, right?
I agree.
And he played 21 seasons, caught Bob Gibson, caught Steve Carlton. So he was great at his
Kitty
craft.
Cat, Jim Cotty caught. I mean, a lot of good.
But he did bring some incredible knowledge and insight to the broadcast booth. You and I talked about this. I always felt there was an anti-Yankee bias
I
in his
disagree.
vote,
I
in his
don't-
voice.
I don't see it. I disagree.
I'm just saying, it's how I
Called it the
view
way
it.
he
you know.
did it. He called it the way he
And it
said
was great. It was the insight and knowledge. And I saw this clip the other day about his call when Mariano Rivera was facing Luis Gonzalez. He said he always comes inside on left-handed batters. There's a very good chance you can get a broken bat single, and that's exactly what happened.
That's right.
10 seconds later.
Tim McCarver, again, I mean,
2 thumbs up.
true baseball guy.
100%.
I never had a problem with Tim McCarver. Very well respected. He's remembered Deion Sanders dumping the water on him.
Good.
And he took umbrage with Deion.
He did.
He called him a punk, actually. And Deion didn't,
Yep.
apologize. And all he was looking for was an apology. It was a situation.
Yep.
Outside of that, Tim McCarver, well loved. Joe Buck, him. They did 16 World Series together. Again, his knowledge of baseball was supreme, and he was well respected.
And 100% wanted to bring that up.
Absolutely a good guy. And Tim McCarver had a great career, great life.
And
So,
Steve, you know who I think about when I thought of Tim McCarver is saying, a guy like that who had such knowledge, right? And it was the perfect setup for Joe Buck, who was articulate and can call the game in motion. I think Ron Darling, to me, in the booth, is that guy now that has that kind of Tim
Knowledge.
McCarver knowledge
No,
that,
I
that
like
you
Ron.
enjoy.
I like Ron Darling.
Me too.
I agree. I think Ron Darling,
Me too.
smart guy, the Yale man.
You talked about it.
But Ron Darling,
Yep.
I think is probably destined for really great things.
Me too.
And he's still young enough
Me
that
too.
he'll be on the air for another 20
But
years.
when you talk about knowledge in the booth, Tim McCarver was undisputed.
yeah, he'll be missed. I
He
mean,
will.
you know, there's certain guys, announcers that
Yep.
we grew up with, and he's one of them.
And Steve, we got one other one, and you and I know all about this guy, Conrad Dobler, right?
Yeah.
Literally, he was tagged with the nickname "the dirtiest player in the league," and
And he loved it.
he did love it. He did. 72 years old, but he was tough. I don't know. He got a look for the Hall of Fame at all, right?
No need.
But he was on a great offensive line. I think the center was Banks, and it was
Banks.
Tom Banks, and it was Conrad Dobler, Dan Deerdorf, and I don't want
Bob Young.
Bob Young. That was the guy I couldn't think of. The neck collar, Bob Young, right?
Well, Bob Young. I mean, that Cardinals offensive line with Jim Hart, Terry Metcalf, J.D. Kane.
Yes.
They were formidable. Don Coryell was the head coach.
Yep.
But Dobler was, you know, the biggest scumbag back then. You know,
It got him a light beer commercial.
oh, it did.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. But I mean, you know, Richie Incognito would probably in today's world would be like
The Conrad Dobler.
Conrad Dobler Jr.
Right, bully.
type of stigma, if you will.
Yep.
But Dobler, there was a piece, and we always go, you know, reference Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. We did it last week. But I remember this. It's got to be 20 years old or so. But a piece on Conrad Dobler. Conrad Dobler he couldn't walk. His knees were completely shot.
Jim Otto, like,
Yeah,
right?
big time,
Yeah.
like huge.
Yep.
And so, you know, the wear and tear of football on these guys.
In the trenches.
But Conrad Dobler,
Notable.
notable.
Sports with
And,
mono and
people
mono.
look him up. Listen, you want to watch highlights, but he would literally cut your knees off
Yep.
as an offensive lineman. He didn't care.
And I think after he left the Cardinals, he went to the Saints for
I
a
believe
cup
the
of
Bills.
coffee.
I think he might have. I don't know if he played for the Bills, but I think the Saints. You're right.
I thought the Saints.
I think the Saints.
Anyway,
But he was a Cardinal through and
he was a football player, and he's reaping the non-benefits of being a football player by, you know,
yeah.
terrible.
But our age, Conrad Dobler, you knew the name.
We did. Anyway, so those are our notable passings. And Steve, great show today. And I'm going to watch that Joe Montana thing that you brought up in your monologue because I feel the same way. Yep. And thanks for joining us, Elizabeth and Jeremy and Mike Garvey. Thanks for the
Thank
comments.
you very much, everybody. Miriam down in Washington, a loyal listener. Thank
Yep.
you for watching. Tony out in San Francisco.
Yep.
And on and on.
It's getting big.
Getting big.
It's getting big. Happy birthday, Logs. Again, we'll see you soon.
You got it.
All right, guys.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
I'm sleeping. Rob fell asleep in the booth. Hey, Rob, you still there?